Hello everyone, welcome again to a new episode. It's been a while since I posted a video. I'm sorry I went back to university. It takes a lot of time and I have to readjust my life and routines. So it's not completed, but I'm happy to come with 3 new videos. So please subscribe, comment and like. If you want to see the 3 videos, they're pretty cool. This one is about DACs, digital to analog converters. So the machine that transform the 0 and 1s from the digital music and convert that into analog signals so it can feed speakers to create music. Now, this machine, there's a lot of debate because basically all it does is take 0 and 1 and convert it, but does it make a difference? Does it worth investing in a lot of money in these machines? So stay tuned, we'll explore that with a shootout of 7 DACs. Does it make a difference? Why should not I stream my music from Bluetooth and enjoy the music? Well, after testing at episode 69, you can watch the video. We had the idea with the Betis, the company that makes an audiophile computer. So Joe and Brian, we decided to test different DACs to see if it makes a difference. So if the digital signal is something that you can treat as delicately as the analog signal. Stay tuned because it's a long video. There's a lot of details and information, but it addresses the question, does it worth it to invest in a DAC?
We're going to do a series of tests. We've got the Betis reference 4. We are using the T plus A DAC as a preamplifier for all our tests today, and the T plus A DAC AMP 200 as the power amplifier, going to Magico A3 speakers, no subwoofer, and we're going to be looking at a variety of DACs. Brian, who's been helping us today, has arranged some blind tests for us, so we just know the various DACs that we have are going to be A, B, C, D, E, maybe F, and we're going to listen to A now. We're going to play a few seconds or a minute of a various number of tracks, and we'll share our thoughts, maybe rank the DACs and see what we liked about each one.
Good, let's go.
Man, I don't know which deck this was, but I loved it. I really felt so immersed. Every instrument was clearly defined, but quite well put together as well. The sound stage was huge. I couldn't tell where the speakers were, but certainly the sound was coming from way past the boundary of the speakers, and I felt really bathed in the sound.
Yeah.
Right. If that's not the best DAC, we're in for a treat, because then if it can be better than that, I'd be really. This is my opinion. Of course, it's a hell of a baseline as the first test.
Yeah.
Right. So we will compare. Maybe there'll be even better ones, and this will sound relatively bad in the future. But as the first one, I think we started with a good one.
Yeah. Well, it was. My feeling was it was velvety.
Mm-hmm.
It was like structured, had body, but the finish was velvety. I loved the bass. I loved the mid range. The highs were good.
I agree with the
see.
velvety thing. I felt
Yeah.
like I was being hugged by the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it felt. And the bass, yes, was tight and musical.
Mhm.
Yeah, very good.
So that was A.
So we didn't have it at the volume matched at the beginning, and I didn't like it. It was quite. I thought it was really missing something. But once we matched the volume, it began to grow on me for sure. I thought it was quite natural sounding, and I could listen to this for a long time without feeling fatigue.
Yeah.
I think the vocals were really rich, and I really loved the vocals, both male and female. But I found that there was a slight smearing of the detail, like when you really listen to detail and transition, especially in the Radiohead track, where there's a lot of effects going on, and it seemed a little bit muddy or smeared, right? The bass, I don't think was as tight as the first one.
Yeah.
But it was still pleasant.
Yeah.
But I must say, I've already made up my mind that I preferred A to this one.
Yeah.
So
I found it was less velvety. It was more open and bright. The bass was less tight.
yeah,
It was not sloppy, but compared to the first one, it was lacking speed and tightness. The highs were more upfront in that deck, and I felt like you that also it didn't have the same details and richness of information as the first deck.
yeah,
So it was like more open, less velvety, but it lacked some details to make it more authoritative.
yeah.
So I felt the first one was more structured, solid deck than the second one.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
far.
I mean, I think, again, I wouldn't mind listening to this if I'd listened to this first, or if this was the only deck that I had in my house. I'm quite happy with it.
So it passes the test, but compares to the other one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, now that I've heard that first one, that's the standard so far.
Okay.
Right?
I really liked it. I think the mid-range was really nice. The high frequencies were good.
Yeah.
The bass were better in the first one, I felt.
The first DAC, you mean?
The DAC A
Yes.
had better bass than DAC C.
Okay.
But DAC C didn't have the velvety coating on it, so it was more open, more transparent, more like I didn't notice anything. So I felt more immersed in the music.
With C.
With C.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, I found all the detail was there. This one, though, I found, like you said, it didn't have that embracing velvety feel, which I think I prefer, right? This was more about that instrument is there, that one is there, and you can hear each one individually, but I didn't think it had the the body that holds it all together as one thing and wraps around you as well, right?
Yeah.
It was like I could listen to this and be very happy with this.
So it's very detailed and crisp.
Yes, and I preferred it to B. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
I found it very similar to A, but lacking that embrace, right?
Yeah.
And so I still prefer A, but this is a very close second favorite.
Okay.
Okay. I think I know what you mean about the high notes. It was maybe a little bit better than the A on that, but it didn't bother me in A, that property. That was D.
What do you think?
I have a lot of thoughts of this one.
Yeah.
This was very interesting. I found it very dull, maybe flat, right? Kind of neutral. These kinds of words that I would use. That it was just too. It didn't sound great to me at the time, right? But then I really listened carefully, and I think that the sound itself was not bad at all.
Yeah.
What it was lacking is the depth,
Yeah.
right? It was really the depth, and so it's like when I drive on my rig using a flat screen versus virtual reality. This was the flat screen.
Yeah.
The other three that we've had have been virtual reality, and A has been the one that's really totally immersive, right?
Yeah.
This one I found there were 2 tracks at least that were suddenly they had depth, and I said, okay, maybe it's not that bad. But then when I thought about it, the previous 3 DACs had a lot more depth even in those tracks,
Yeah.
right? And so, again, I said it sounds just fine, but it doesn't immerse me. It doesn't pull me in to want to listen, all day long. And again, I think I would have felt that way about it if I had not heard the others before.
Yeah. Well, I found that there was a good like the first one had that velvety feeling. That one had a little bit of velvet, if you want, but not as pronounced as the first one. So
Right.
the tonality was kind of interesting because it was fully open, transparent, but also it had that nice feeling. I'm not sure if I like the velvety feeling of the first one, and that one had less that, so I preferred that tonality. So D was good for the tonality, better than A, but it lacked soundstage.
Yeah.
Like I felt the signal was thinner, and but the tonality was right. The bass was better. I think from all the DACs we listened so far, we listened 4. That the bass was probably my favorite.
Really, I didn't find it very tight, but I found it. I found it kind of. I mean, the whole thing was kind of natural sounding.
Yeah, honest.
Right. Yeah, but I found, as I said, the depth is lacking. Right, the 3D aspect of it.
Yeah.
Was lacking, and so I think on its own, whatever that was, people would be very happy with that DAC. But I don't think it's. To me, it doesn't compare to A or C.
Yeah.
It's different from B.
Yeah.
It's different to B, but I would rank them about the same for me for engagement.
Okay.
I thought it was similar to the previous one, but with a bit more depth and better soundstage. Yeah, I mean, I quite liked this one. I liked it. I think the bass was a little bit tighter, and as I said, the soundstage was a little bit better. Again, it was fairly neutral, right? In the Radiohead track, The Reckoner, there's the very first bit when the vocals start, the guy's kind of humming. In some of the DACs, you can tell that he's kind of moving from one side of the mic to the other. There's a little panning that goes this way.
And you were looking for it?
I was looking for it this time. And this time it was very subtle. It wasn't so clear like A and C had been. Even the previous one was a little bit more.
Uh,
What I'm finding, I think, is that each of these DACs, there's at least one track that it sounds pretty good in. You know, they all have a
yeah,
slight,
yeah,
you know, oh, this is the type of track
yeah.
that is very pleasant to listen to with this DAC. But this one, I think I'd rank it above D,
Mm-hmm.
or close to it. You
Yeah.
know, that's how I think. But I think they sounded quite similar.
Okay, I really like that one. I thought that, as you mentioned, the bass was tighter than others. The sound stage was great, but what got me on this one is the tonality. The tonality is open, not bright, not muddy, not velvety like the A, or even a little bit C. But I really found that the tonality was right on that one, and that there was a structure, there was some presence, and more soundstage than the previous one. So I really like that one
Okay.
because of what it does. It does right. I might have less detail than A, for
Okay.
instance, but I thought it was more of my liking, more of my
Okay.
taste.
I thought at times actually that, you know, especially in the upper vocals, there might have been some distortion, but I wasn't
Yeah, I
sure.
heard distortion too.
Right. And Brian was saying that there may have been some kind of bad connection.
Ah, okay.
Okay. So,
But there was distortion, I agree.
okay, because
On
he
that
said
one.
to me that, and halfway through the test,
Yeah,
and at first I kind of disagreed, but then I thought, oh yeah, maybe that's it there, right?
yeah. But I just heard it now. I didn't hear it on A, B, C, or D.
No.
It was
Exactly.
just E.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
just the E.
Okay. We'll have a summary after,
Sure.
but let's just talk about this one. What did you think?
This one, I loved this one. I really love this one. This was the first one where my feet were tapping along, and I found, holy shit, I've got a smile on my face listening to it.
Yeah.
And the first thing I noticed was the background was dead quiet, and you only heard the things you're supposed to hear. Like, you know, it was quiet background, right? For me, this one ranks up there with the A and C. I'd have to listen to them again, but this could well be my favorite one. The bass was tight. There were details in some of the songs that I don't think I've ever heard before. Pockets by the Beautiful South. The notes were hanging in the air, right? It was like it was a physical thing that I could go up and actually hold. That was like an epiphany. I mean, I thought I was tired listening to all of these things,
Yeah.
but that one
Music was fresh with it.
it was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
There's a difference between these DACs. There's a definite difference.
There's a big difference between
right?
the 6 DACs.
Yeah.
I didn't know DACs were tainting that much, so
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. But let's just.
So what
I'll
did you
just
think?
talk about this one.
Yes, what did you think?
I thought that's the one for me, because the tonality is right,
Mm-hmm.
and that's my favorite one because the tonality is right and the structure. The sound is composed, but has a lot of authority because it's structured. Like you feel that the bass, the mid, and the high are solid.
Yeah, and it felt quite
And
live.
agile,
Yes,
agile.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, to me it sounded a lot like the one before.
Yeah, same thing. Same comment.
I think the bass here gave a bit more presence, but it wasn't punchy and authoritative like the previous one. I think this one, I really liked it overall. I think the bass was a little less defined,
Yeah.
but just gave it kind of more like a background. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it gave it more. It was there. Its purpose was more to give volume to to the sound, right? To give I don't mean volume by like how loud it is, but to kind of fill the sound. But it wasn't as punchy as the one before. The vocals, the details, the high end was great. Like I liked all of those. Like the one before, the high end tones were there. I was hearing the stuff that I was hearing before. Maybe my ears are used to it now. But I really liked it. It didn't give me the same I'm in love feeling as the one before, but it felt very similar.
Yeah, same comments. I felt it was like F, but with less soundstage, a little bit a thinner signal, weaker in the bass. I felt like it was like the same DAC as F, but like with Bluetooth or another connection.
Also, even if it were the case or not the case, subtle changes in the volume can make a big difference. And I try to match what I remember from the previous one with the first track, and then leave it there. But it could be, also slight changes there that might be. I wonder if Brian played a trick on us and just didn't change anything or something. But no, I agree. I think it sounded similar. It could well be the same DAC with a different input. So that was very interesting. So before we come to any hard conclusions, there are a few caveats that I think we should mention.
Okay, go ahead.
One, I think because of the way we were filming, we weren't really sitting in the optimal spot for the speakers. We were maybe a foot behind, but we should still have a decent idea of what we heard. What was really clear to me, two things: differences between the DACs, but differences between us as well, right? In what we heard. I think there were times where we strongly agreed with pretty much everything. But then there were some things I think maybe we didn't communicate well, like, when you were saying the velvety feel of something, was that a positive or a negative for you? Or,
For you it was positive, for me it was negative.
Right. So I think we meant different things there, right? I meant that it was something that was like immersive in embracing, but I didn't think like overly soft, which is what you might have been thinking.
I felt it was two things like you. I had noticed a lot of differences between DACs, and also I learned about my tastes and your tastes.
Right.
Were different, but still we could recognize quality.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced that we're gonna decide right now. We're gonna rate the DACs. I'm confident we can agree based on quality.
I certainly have a clearly defined favorite 4, and the other 4 I've almost forgotten about. I don't even remember which ones I really liked or disliked. So, we'll take the rankings with maybe a pinch of salt. But I must say there was, maybe with one exception, I liked them all. If I hadn't heard the others, I would feel like, wow, this is in my house. I've got this sound and I love it. So that's something that we need to, I think, emphasize, that all of them were pretty good. Maybe one I didn't like that much, but I can't even remember which one it was. I think it might have been D or E.
Really?
Yeah, I think. And F and E wasn't bad, was it? I think it was D maybe. F and G I really liked a lot. So should we do the ranking now, is anything
I'm
else?
ready. I'm ready. If you want to state the order of DACs that you like,
right?
Go for it.
I think F was probably my favorite by a tiny amount. G and A, I would tie them for second and very close behind.
Okay.
I think I'd love to hear those 3 again sometime. And maybe I'll do that once we finished, today, and really decide. Because one thing about A was it was the first one, right, that we heard. And maybe there's some kind of edge effect. It set the standard. And I'm not sure whether I liked it more than I should have, just because it was the first thing I listened to, and it was great, because obviously we do get tired, right, listening to the same things. So I think F is my favorite. 2 and G and A I would call very close. Then C, not far behind. Yes, C and E together. I think I would rank together. And then B and then D.
I mean, we're really close.
Okay.
My favorite one is F.
Okay.
It's followed by G.
Yeah.
They're so similar in many aspects. They're like cousins, but G is a little bit less impressive, and you want to embrace it a little bit less.
Yeah.
A, I recognize the quality. A has everything, but it taints too much the sound for me. That velvet effect that I mentioned,
Yeah.
I have to declassify it in my taste because I don't like it.
Okay. Okay.
But I recognize the quality, like the dynamics, everything is there. The sound stage, the details, the speed, the architecture. You feel it's strong, it's solid, it has authority. So in order, it's F, G, and after that I go to C.
Okay.
Like you.
Yeah.
I put D and B at the end,
Okay.
and I put A right after C.
Okay. What about E? Did you say
I put it after C. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Right. I don't remember much about E now. I'll have to listen back to my comments and think about it. I think that was the one that I thought was similar to D, but had more depth. So I think maybe I prefer B to E, but we'll see. What's clear for me is F, G, A, and C are my top 4, and they're all very close together. But something about F just was superb for me.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and again, it's this room, it's the volume levels that we had. All of these are factors, so our findings should be taken with a pinch of salt, but I'm dying to know what they were.
Yeah, well, in conclusion, I think we come from different tastes, not that different, but we have a little bit of preferences, but we come up with the same results. So that speaks a lot about the quality of the gear.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we were using the T+A DAC 200 as a preamplifier for all of these.
For the balance reason.
Yes.
There's the balance
There's
option.
the balance control on it. And, and the quality of the cable that we're using for that, connecting all the DACs, because we have to use RCA. I don't have a really good RCA cable, only balanced ones. So that could be a factor, but it should affect all of them similarly, right? But yeah, I found it to be a great test, even though it's not a scientific, test. It was blind. We don't really know which one is which.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was very revealing that there's so much. There can be so much difference, and not just in the tonality, but the sound stage, the depth
the
of
whole
it.
sound.
Yeah,
the whole sound is different depending on the DAC.
Yeah, and the emotions that they evoked.
Yeah.
For us. Okay, good.
So Brian.
Yes.
So
I'm gonna write these down.
Time to if you can tell us A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's the moment of truth. We're gonna know which DAC is which.
all right, so A is the T+A.
Okay.
T+A was A.
DAC 200. Very close to my favorite.
Okay.
And which input were you using there?
AES.
Okay. AES.
AES.
There's a difference, yeah.
Okay.
The USB is a little bit better, we think, but
USB is better than
for that DAC.
that for that DAC. That's rare. Okay.
Yep.
B, the Berkeley.
Yep.
You knew that.
Yep. So the T+A is about $7,000 US.
C, the Saturn.
Saturn.
D
Oops.
was the Gustard.
Which input?
AES.
Okay.
E was this little Ecinic $30 DAC.
Okay.
F was right under E over here, the Diablo.
The Diablo was F.
Yeah.
And finally, G was the T plus A again, but with USB this time.
Ah. Okay.
The T plus A.
With USB.
The A with USB
Yes.
was the second favorite.
Yeah. Was G. Yep.
It sounded so different from A.
It didn't to me. I thought they were very close. Yeah, I thought that, as I said, A and look, I've got both ranked as 2.
Yeah.
Right? I thought they were really, really close.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I found it very similar to F. As I said, I thought I would like to hear them again, right? Because it was so close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that was like, I had a hard time, I think, between G and A. I think I preferred A a little bit, maybe,
Uh-huh.
but I'm not sure, right? But F was a clear winner, as I stated. Yeah.
Diablo, is it? What's your reaction?
Well, we already know, right?
Okay.
That it's great. Martin Lebrec
Yeah.
has his actually system is actually close to, it's $700,000 US, right? His system,
Uh-huh.
and he uses that DAC. That DAC is spectacular for the price.
Okay.
It is really, really good. And we are actually not even using all the fancy cables that you need to make it sound even better.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Final word.
There's a lot of stuff going on here. There's so much difference between them. I think that the scope of this, like testing 6 of them together like that, I think we may have found more insights if we had more time and did them in pairs or compared each of them. But yeah, I really I found the top 2 very, very close. But there's a big difference in the price, right, between them. So I think, like the after those 1 and 2, then the Saturn I found, I ranked as 3rd. I don't remember what you said C was.
My third one.
3rd as well. And yeah, that's a fantastic DAC as well. But what we can clearly see, the top of the range, B, was used to be the highest quality DAC you could get a few years ago, maybe like 8-9 years ago. But
sounded the worst in the
it wasn't. It was close to the bottom, right? And that just goes to show how the technology has improved. The DAC chips, the analog sections have improved over the years. So that's an important consideration.
Yeah. What can we say about the importance of DACs in the sound chain?
So, I'm a little bit biased because I make sources, right? And I make the digital source, and so many people believe that there's no difference, right? But we know that there's a difference. I think if your source is good enough, then you will hear the difference between the DACs, right? If it's not good enough and it's the limiting factor, the DACs are going to be kind of more close together, right? But you need something that performs higher than the best DAC that you have so that it provides the best signal. But what it means is that the different chips, whether it's a ladder DAC, an R2R DAC, or something by AK, or a Sigma, or an ES DAC, a Saber DAC, that all makes a difference, right? We really like the sound of the AK chips. In general, I think they perform beautifully, but the the analog section makes a big difference as well. So you could have a cheap DAC that cheaps out on the analog signal but has a really good DAC chip. It's not going to sound the same as a DAC that we think the chip isn't so good, but the analog section is great. And to put it all together beautifully is an art form. You know, and I think T+A really does a good job of that. Brian likes the Saturn DAC a lot. He thinks it's pretty close to the T+A. Is that right, Brian? Would you say that it's quite natural sounding?
It's definitely up there. It would be in my top 3 out of this test, easily.
Saturn was
C.
C.
Yeah.
C, yeah.
Yeah, which you said was third.
What was my third?
Yeah, as well.
So in conclusion, for me, it's I never suspected that DACs would make so different sounds.
Yep.
I mean, DAC is supposed to take 0 and 1s and convert that into sound, analog signal.
Yeah.
But in that process, there's so much going on.
There's an interpretation, right?
There's soundstage, dynamics, speed, authority, presence, everything, everything that is different from DACs to DACs. So I really encourage people to listen to their DACs before to buy them.
Yeah, listen to the DAC and don't listen to the manufacturer of the DAC, okay? They will tell you almost always the USB is the best input because it can do a lot. It can go to higher PCM levels, it can do sample rates, it can go to higher PCM sample rates, it can play DSD music natively through the USB with the right drivers. But when we listen to music, it's not the numbers that we're listening to. It's how the emotional connection is with the music. And sometimes a different input with maybe lower specification and it might sound better. Now with the Gustard, all the reviews that I've seen online, they all say it's a fantastic DAC and it's great, but they're only looking at the USB.
And
right.
How did it rank in our
it
shootout
was
today?
Probably we thought it was
Near the bottom.
Near the bottom, yeah. Near the bottom. But was that USB or AES?
AES.
That was AES. Now I think the AES on the Gustard is better.
Yeah, we've
than
tried
the USB.
it. We've
tried
and
it.
USB was not satisfying.
And what I think we agreed with on this one was that it sounded okay, but it didn't have the sound stage, right? It was quite, I think I said it was quite neutral sounding, right? Which means that it's playing everything like it should, but it's not interpreting it. You know, it's up to us to interpret it, and I just found it a little bit duller. Whereas, I don't know about you, but I love when the sound is 3-dimensional. It's right in my face and it's around me. That's what I was thinking, like that I'm being encased in velvet rather than, something harsh sounding. So for me, the T+A and the Diablo are clearly at the top.
One thing we haven't mentioned also is that you have magical speakers, so they're extremely revealing, they're extremely detailed, and that's good to listen for DACs.
Yeah.
If we had some other speakers or headphones that are not of high-end level, we wouldn't have seen that much difference.
Maybe. I know that we've just had a system reviewed by a guy who uses headphones mostly he listens to headphones first and then he'll put it in a speaker system, and and this time he wasn't trying different DACs, he was just trying different sources. And he couldn't believe the sound stage you can get from the headphones. Is way beyond the limits of the headphones. I think obviously the whole chain matters, and it starts with the source, ends with the room, really, not even the speakers. It ends with the room, and this is not the quietest room. We can hear some components elsewhere with fans in them, my server, my switch, so it's not the quietest noise floor, yet I think A and F, the T plus A and the Diablo, were really good at having that low noise floor. You know, the everything was just in a black background, and it was bright and it was nice. You know, yeah, we can tell the difference easily between the DACs, and people have different preferences and different budgets. Right? The Diablo sounds fantastic, but you need to add a whole bunch of other stuff to make it perform at its peak. It's only about $1,500, right? But some people are using $3,000 or $4,000 of cables with it to make it sound superb. The T plus A is $7,000 and it's got everything, and it was our preamp today as well.
I am really impressed by how much difference it makes.
Yeah.
It's with you, I learned so much about digital signal. It's crazy.
I'm impressed that I have all these DACs, and like, even the shittiest one was not terrible, right? It was not bad at all.
Yeah.
I think that's the one that was distorting, wasn't it? E? Yeah.
What I've heard from Hi-Fi was very impressive. The Diablo 1 was definitely up there, clearly different from the other ones. So like the question, if you ask yourself, oh, should I use my computer through Bluetooth to send a signal to my speakers? Probably not, because I see from the different videos I've done recently, you can see that plugging an Ethernet cable to your modem, your router actually, then directly to a source like the Batis, really changes the sound. So thank you, Joe and Brian, for the test. It's been very informative. Now these differences, these big differences in DACs, might not be clearly heard on YouTube with the algorithm of compressions, but it's not like a tremendous difference. It's just the feeling of the music changes between DACs, the texture, all the details. Your body can feel that. Your ears are really keen at detecting details and converting that into emotions and feelings. So it's instantaneous. So clearly DACs make a difference. That's a big realization. I'd be happy to hear your comments down below. Thank you for listening to this long video until here. And I hope to see you in other videos. Please comment, subscribe, buy me a coffee, engage. It'd be nice to learn more. Thank you so much for watching. See you in new videos.